Senator from Colorado.
Madam President, I'd ask to speak as if in morning business.
Without objection.
Thank you, Madam President. I heard the Senator from Massachusetts laying out the scenario that we face not just as Americans, but as members of and inhabitants of this wonderful planet Earth. And I was compelled to come to the floor and talk about what we're doing in Colorado in seizing the opportunities that the Senator from Massachusetts points out to us. He described ably and eloquently what I have characterized as a no-regrets policy. We ought to take all of these steps because whether or not climate change materializes, and I'm one who believes the science is very powerfully pointing in that direction, all of those steps would result in the benefits that he described. And I want to bring my home state perspective here today to this debate over transitioning to cleaner and safer and more secure energy sources. When we make this change, we'll improve our national security, we lessen our dependence on foreign oil, we protect our earth, and we preserve the air we breathe and the water that we drink. And most of all, we keep faith with our children. I've long believed that we don't inherit the earth from our parents, we're actually borrowing it in all its majesty from our children. And Colorado has, I think, a unique perspective on this opportunity, and I think America can benefit from our experiences. For many years, we've been a national leader in developing energy sources that are traditional, like coal and natural gas. And then in recent years, we've begun to lead the nation in producing renewable energy from the sun and from the wind and from biomass. In 2004, I think the presiding officer as a former governor could understand the symbolism of what we did. I led a campaign along with our Republican Speaker of our state house, Lola Spradley, to create a renewable energy standard for our state. We barnstormed together all over our state in that highly partisan 2004 election, and we surprised people that a Democrat and a Republican were campaigning together. But it wasn't a Democrat or Republican issue, it was a Colorado issue. And I think even more importantly, it was a Colorado opportunity. There were naysayers who tried to scare our voters by saying that the renewable standard would raise energy costs and harm our economy. But our voters decided to take up the challenge and to commit to generating 10% of our electricity from the sun and from the wind and other clean sources of energy. Our clean energy producers, Madam President, went to work after we passed this measure, and just 3 years later, our legislature, realizing that we'd reached that goal, or we were soon to reach that goal, said, let's double the standard. So we now have a 20% standard that we're committed to reaching by the year 2020. Now, we're fortunate to have these ample supplies of clean energy resources in Colorado. But the real key to this has been releasing the ingenuity of our people and then setting goals that create a sustainable future. And I wanted to share some examples from Colorado specifically. Just last week, Tri-State, a Colorado utility, joined with a subsidiary of Duke Energy to announce plans to build a wind power facility in Kit Carson, Colorado, out on our eastern plains. Vestas, many of us are familiar with the Danish wind turbine supplier, recently broke ground on 2 new manufacturing plants in the city of Brighton that will eventually employ over 1,300 people. And it's also building a $250 million plant in Pueblo, which will be the largest manufacturing facility of its kind and employ 500 people. Our governor, Bill Ritter, has estimated that the solar component, Madam President, we had a solar component in our renewable electricity standard specifically to generate solar energy activity. That component's brought over 1,500 new jobs to Colorado. I think it's fair to say we've got wind turbines sprouting and growing like trees on our eastern plains, and we have solar farms that are covering the entire San Luis Valley, which is one of our agricultural gems. And this is a direct result of Colorado setting a goal and saying we're going to meet that goal. And I guess I'm optimistic enough about America to know that America can follow Colorado's lead. And for me, it's when, not if, we commit to a cleaner and more sustainable energy future. We will lead the world in this next great technological revolution. The Senator from Massachusetts spoke to the awe-inspiring numbers that are potential. $6 trillion economy waiting for us out there if we'll only commit to pursuing it. The Union of Concerned Scientists has estimated that a 25% renewable electricity standard by 2025 would lead to almost 300,000 new jobs here in America, $260 billion plus in new capital investments, $13 billion in income to farmers, ranchers, and rural landowners, and $12 billion in local and state tax revenues. Consumers would save $64 billion in lower electricity bills by 2025, while we would reduce the carbon pollution emitted by cars that would be the equivalent of taking 45 million vehicles off of our roads. I'm talking about jobs here, Madam President, but it goes much further than that. If and I said when we develop a clean energy economy, it will create a new manufacturing base. It will protect our land and our water, and it will align a policy compass that helps us navigate towards a more prosperous future. Now, I'd like to just take a minute and emphasize that the clean energy future I paint doesn't mean the abandonment of traditional sources of energy. We have coal and oil and natural gas in abundance, nor should it shut the door on nuclear power. Quite the opposite. These sources will remain an essential component of our energy mix for the foreseeable future. I think Colorado's experience shows that a balanced energy portfolio will work, and that we can find that sweet spot in an energy mix for the future.